What's up, everybody? Let's just do a little review on some of the things that I've reported on in the last year here. Down in Peru, we had the 2 meter tall aliens that floated and had yellow glowing eyes that the locals were calling Las Facaras, or the face peelers. And then something happened down at that Miami mall that got the internet rumor mill rolling. People were saying that they saw these shadowy alien like creatures. And now in Zimbabwe, we've got not one, not two, but multiples of reports on goblin attacks. So I reported on the first two. I would feel remiss if I didn't report on this. The Peruvian thing just stunk to high heaven of American military involvement. We've been down there spreading democracy like we do. And also, there were gold mines involved and cartels, so some serious monetary incentive for foul play. The Miami thing was incredibly sus. The number of cop cars out there was completely disproportionate to a street fight. There were some curious reports coming out about it, but it turned into an internet clout chase thing. So I was a bit incredulous about both of those events. This goblin thing, I first heard somebody report on it on YouTube here, and they're laughing and yucking it up, and oh, these dumb villagers, and call me crazy, but that's not the approach I'm going to take to this. Let me read you the reports, and then I'll explain why. We're going to start out here in October of 2013. Local officials insist that pupils at multiple schools in the Metabella South province have been terrorized by goblins. Many parents have stopped sending their children to school. Chief Masuku says that children are constantly being attacked by goblins during lessons and some faint. The headmaster says the whole school is being affected. We cannot continue operating under such an environment. When the attacks start, pupils run amok. They start screaming and panicking, and eventually the whole school runs amok. Beliefs in goblins and witchcraft persist in many parts of rural Zimbabwe, though practicing witchcraft is an offense. They have literally signed into law there the Witchcraft Suppression Act. Now, you could argue that this is just a placebo to pacify the local population, but this is far from the only time a local magistrate has outlawed witchcraft. In Haiti in 1835, the government banned voodoo. Go down and spend a little bit of time in New Orleans, and yeah, there's novelty shops for voodoo and tourist gimmicky things, but talk to some of the locals and then come tell me how voodoo is just all in your head. I think that these laws are put into place when outsiders come in and start colonizing an area, and though they would never acknowledge this publicly, they realize that there's something to this. More on that later. Goblin sightings are reported seriously in both the state and the private press. Photos are, perhaps not surprisingly, rare, though one published in a government paper around 2 years ago showed an inert doll-like object that appeared handmade. Now, that sounds a lot like a voodoo doll, which today, of course, we just mock the idea of such a thing, but I think there's more to it. Last month, a Harare businessman made the headlines by appealing to Vice President Majuru to help him remove the goblins from his gold mine in Shamba. Okay, now we're back to a gold mine like in Peru, and when there is a huge monetary incentive like a gold mine, I do suspect foul play. But the rest of these reports have no monetary incentive whatsoever. I also think that witchcraft and voodoo has been used as a deterrent against these colonial powers that come in and exploit an area. Some villagers who live close to the school have revealed that they hear strange noises coming from the school at night. On some occasions, villagers who have passed by the school during odd hours have reported spotting strange objects. Now let's jump from 2013 to March of 2020. In a bizarre tale, 5 pupils at Malinga Malabo Primary School were left painfully writhing on the ground after invisible things attacked them during playtime at the school's grounds. The sinister situation escalated, causing the school to close its doors and send the pupils home. Concerned parents have rallied to engage the services of a traditional healer with the permission of the chief. Community members reportedly contributed $10 per homestead to meet the costs of the cleaning. One of the teachers says a grade 3 pupil came running to us at the staff room and informed us that 2 grade 4 pupils had become hysterical and began screaming while rolling on the ground, saying they were being beaten by invisible things. He rushed out and we found them wriggling on the ground while one of them was frothing. We performed first aid and resuscitated her. We took her to a clinic because she was complaining of fever. She was treated and discharged. 3 more pupils are said to have been attacked the next day. Now, the next 3 pupils the next day, that might just be a copycat thing. But everybody remembers playing sick, when you were a kid. You're never going to convince an adult that you're sick to the point you need resuscitation without actually having something wrong with you. You're also not going to fake a high fever, even though a lot of us have tried. But apparently the school nurse said, well, yeah, they do have abnormal body heat, and they rushed them to a clinic. The panic-stricken parents agreed that the school should be temporarily closed while they made plans to enlist a traditional healer to conduct a cleansing. And evidently, holy men ain't cheap in Zimbabwe because they raised $2,700 to perform this cleansing, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. 2022, they had another incident. Villagers in the area are currently up in arms after an apostolic sect prophet, popularly known as Madzibaba, failed to chase away the goblins believed to be terrorizing the school. The goblins have allegedly been harassing teachers and pupils. So it wasn't just the kids this time. The teachers said that they were involved in this too, and all of them reported this. I didn't want to keep saying this over and over, but there's some serious violation here. So they called in somebody from a Christian church, this so-called prophet, and he wasn't able to do anything about it. This so-called prophet, Madzibaba, visited the school last week and performed his magic. Unfortunately, the ceremony did not yield the desired results because the abuse by goblins has escalated even more. Parents were fuming, saying Madzibaba failed to remove the goblins. So the local residents there take this very seriously, and they just called out this false prophet from a local Christian church. They say the community desperately needs a traditional healer who will carry out the task well and expose the culprits. So let me give you my take on all this. We in the civilized Western world view all of this as old children's tales fantasy stuff. But I actually think that we're talking about some type of demonic being here, and just kind of putting 2 and 2 together about the old tales, it doesn't seem like they're necessarily malevolent by nature, mischievous perhaps, with some of them being truly bad apples, but I think through ancient secret ceremonies and rituals, they can be compelled to go and harass an intended target. So like the locals said, they want to know who the culprit is. They want to know who it is that's unleashing these beings on the children and everybody. I think this is just a type of demonology. Solomonic magic is just about the control of demons, and I think there's different grades of jinn, demons, goblins, whatever you want to call them. This is the kind of stuff that was taught to our ancestors by the fallen angels, or whatever you want to call them. Now, this kind of stuff used to be prevalent in Europe and England, kind of all around the world. But it's been systematically stamped out of all of our cultures, but it still remains, like when they first went to Haiti, there were still witch doctors down there that knew these ancient rites. So remote areas of Zimbabwe today evidently still have people that understand how this works. Now, I would rank this as a low-level demonic attack. The reason this has been stamped out of Western culture is that all of the low-grade magicians have been stamped out by the higher-grade ones, the ones that run entire countries. So there used to be people in all cultures, like in Zimbabwe, that could use these goblins as an vindictive assault on someone, but we no longer see this in the Western world because the higher-up magicians got rid of the mid-levels and wanted to convince everybody that there's no such thing as magic, demons, any of that. And these are magicians with true power that can do things like summon a big guy like Asmodeus and send him to a senator's house if they want to make a point. So it's kind of like a pickpocket in a mafia-controlled area. You've got a whole street full of merchants and vendors that pay the mafia for protection to keep everything on the chill. And if some hood rat comes in and starts picking pockets, they're not going to tolerate that. They're going to snag him up and say, look, boy, I got a real thing going here. You need to get out. You don't even understand what level I'm operating on here. I own this whole block. Well, it's the same thing here. All of the pickpocket grade witch doctors have been ran out of business by the people that run whole countries. So it's really easy for people to look at this story and laugh and poke fun, and maybe everybody thinks I'm crazy for saying that no, this is possibly a truly demonic force that we're dealing with here. This has been around for generations, and the people that live there understand that this is being summoned by someone. It's not just out of the blue. And it sounds like the local church, who probably didn't take this seriously at all, just thought, oh, just send in a Madzababa and have him wave some incense around, it'll be fine. But these locals know that there's still people out there with these spiritual powers that understand what's really going on, and they say, no, we need somebody to come in, identify who is making this happen so that we can stop it. Not some chump in his robes waving some incense around. Now, sometimes these people from the church actually do have true spiritual powers through God. I was recently reading about some Huascahueros down in Peru, and there were some locals that were using some black magic, and the local church people, they had no power over them. They were truly protected. And, using the name goblins is going to invoke a certain dismissiveness in the English language, but they've known about these evil spirits for a long time. The Zikvwambo are believed to be visible only to those that they attack. And here they're talking about them attacking people that were working to install water pumps on a reservoir, and that they've even gone after nurses and police, and even politicians have not escaped these dealings. With this happening at a school, it's kind of easy to dismiss it as childhood fantasy, but they have closed down an entire police station, and the cops refuse to go back in there. So unfortunately, using the term goblins is going to automatically make people think it's a joke. If you were to use the term demonic beings, people would probably take it a little more seriously. But the reality is, our ancestors used to get visited by these demonic beings, and they called them goblins. They're little monster creatures. And it's been basically stamped out of the educated world, but in little pockets in rural areas, there are people that have carried on these traditions ever since the time of fallen angels, probably. So maybe I'm crazy, but this one, I think there's actually something going on here. Static out.